He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome to Coast View, the show that celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi a better place to live, work, and play. Hey, in the second segment today, we've got Mike Wilson, who's the executive director of the Gulf Coast Community Ministries. They're doing some incredible work, especially during the pandemic. They food pantries, free medical services for uninsured adults. They have a clothing closet. They have the homeless outreach. They do their camping for home supply distribution, and even have shower trailers for the homeless. What interesting and important conversation that's going to be with Mike Wilson coming up. He's just one of so many in the nonprofit community that are out there filling gaps. They've always done it, but this pandemic has increased the needs, and we're lucky to have people like him. So anyway, we'll come back to Mike in the second half of the show. In the first half of the show, we have Ashley Edwards, the president and CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council. Good morning, Ashley. How are you?
Hey there, Ricky. I'm doing great. Good to see you.
So you're actually on a little family vacation. You're in northern Alabama as we speak, but you're still joining me on Coast View representing the Business Council. I appreciate you taking the time to do that, from your personal time.
Oh, I'm glad to do it. Thank you.
Hey, and I saw, I'm a big fisherman and I'm a big hunter. We talk about that pretty often, but let's see if I can get this up there for the people to see. You caught a big fish, I saw. Look at the size of that fish. Wow. Actually, it's almost bigger than the lure.
Yeah, I think he actually was just maybe a centimeter bigger than the lure. I'm at a little tiny pond in the wilderness up in North Alabama, and I was throwing a little Rapala crankbait, and I thought I hit a blade of grass when he hit it. I mean, I didn't have any idea I was gonna have a fish on, but he was ambitious,
Yeah.
I don't know what he was gonna do with that if he actually got to eat it. I don't know that it would actually fit inside his mouth.
It's so much fun though, just to soak in the outdoors. God dang, I can't get enough of it myself.
Absolutely. I mean, this is, we wanted to get away for a long weekend, and, haven't really been able to do that this summer. And the ability to, kind of get out in the woods and get away from people and get away from COVID. It's a blessing to be able to have the outdoors to go and do this.
We're so lucky to have what we have in Mississippi, from the Delta, duck hunting and deer hunting and squirrel hunting and the saltwater fishing on the coast, the incredible freshwater fishing across the state. In fact, I asked Cammie, our producer for the show, she's our content producer, works with Kyle and me, to arrange a conversation with Will Primos, who has Primos Outdoors. And, Will's just such a great representative of this state and can speak so clearly about the opportunities we have to enjoy natural resources in the state. Wow. I mean, it's incredible. But I'm glad that you took time from your family vacation to join us for a conversation here on Coast View. Hey, listen, a lot of time we take this for granted, but why don't we remind people what the Gulf Coast Business Council is?
Well, the Gulf Coast Business Council was formed back in 2006, just on the heels of Hurricane Katrina's landfall. Interesting thing about the Gulf Coast Business Council is it's really existed in some form since the 1970s. Business leaders from across the coast used to gather up once a month at Mary Mahoney's back in the 1970s, and they would get together and talk about items of common interest. They'd talk about the policies, the public policy issues, the economic issues, determine ways they could work together to try to influence positive change in the Gulf Coast. And they continued to do that for decades, really up until Hurricane Katrina hit. And then in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, a number of business leaders were involved. You were involved in that, Ricky. You remember that well. And really putting together and formalizing this effort to ensure that there was a voice for business and for economic sustainability on the Mississippi Gulf Coast that really would provide leadership around finding solutions to our regional issues and trying to take those things forward. And that is what the Business Council is in a nutshell. We do a wide variety of things. We're primarily involved in economic and public policy issues. Anything that ultimately makes the coast more sustainable, makes it a better place to live, a better place to do business, makes it a better place to ensure the success of not only this generation but the next generation to come. And that's what we focus on every day.
What I like about where the Business Council is today is this focus on the strategic focus. Where is the economy around the United States headed, and how can the Gulf Coast, how can the coastal Mississippi position itself to take advantage of whatever those opportunities might be? Yeah, I would say that the issue before Katrina was that unless there was a really hot issue, I would say that the predecessors to the Gulf Coast Business Council tended to be more of a social get together. And I think a lot of people had issues with that. And Katrina had a way of, bringing us all together and saying, wow, now we've got something to focus on. And, that work has continued. I mean, here we are 15 years later, and the Gulf Coast Business Council is still continuing to build a head of steam and representing coastal Mississippi on those issues that are common. As I say this all the time, we're a collection of these communities. Each of these communities make this such a special place. The diversity that exists in each of those communities, culture and history and whatever. But when it comes to common issues, we've got to find that one voice so that we can represent ourselves in Jackson and in Washington and wherever else we need to represent ourselves with one voice. And it creates this really very difficult thing to not hear when we speak with one voice. That's always been clear, hasn't it?
It has been. And, you talk about regionalism and all of the things that go into it. What we find when we look across the country, Ricky, is that the folks that are doing regionalism well those are the areas that are really seeing a lot of economic success. And, when you think about it, the Gulf Coast Business Council is really the only, if not one of the few, groups that we have on the coast that truly is regional in nature, because we really represent the 6 lower counties of Mississippi, the entire region, as do the large employers and even some of the small businesses that are our members. We have more than 250 businesses that are members of the Gulf Coast Business Council. And then when you look at all of the organizations out there, the military bases, the school districts, the universities that all have a partnership membership with us, we actually represent greater than 75% of all the jobs in the 6 coastal county region of Mississippi. And, for so long, we have allowed, I say we, I mean the collective we on the coast, we've allowed other parts of the state to supersede us, to dictate to us. And, our ability to work together as a region, we have tremendous economic strength in our region. In many ways, we are the economic engine of Mississippi. And so our ability to work on the same page, to work on issues of common interest, on shared vision is important. And to your point earlier, having a strategy, having a plan, understanding where we're going to go, and then measuring our success as we get there is very important.
So you're on your family vacation somewhere in northern Alabama, and when I was president of Advance Alabama, one of the newspapers and websites that reported to me was in Huntsville. And so I spent a lot of time in Huntsville. Huntsville is an amazing example. There are lots of examples, but that's one that's relatively near us, where when you get on the same page, you can make amazing things happen. I mean, what they've done with that base there, their coordination with NASA and all the technology companies that surround that. When they do a fly into Washington, D.C., they bring 100 to 150 people go. I mean, they have no, there is no confusion about what the goal is, because they're doing it based on a plan, and man, have they had success. And coastal Mississippi now has begun to establish its own best practice through the Gulf Coast Business Council and the other organizations of coastal Mississippi that sort of work together to help find that voice. It's a special organization. I'm pleased that here we are again 15 years after Katrina, and we're still able to look forward and keep our eyes on that strategic plan and where the new economy is taking us and where the new opportunities are. So actually, one of the things I wanted to talk about today, I went back and actually listened to the conversation that you and you and Adele and I had back in April. So April, May, June, July. It's amazing. 4 months. A lot has happened in the last 4 months, but one thing has been constant, and that is that COVID-19, as we suspected, has not gone away because we don't have an adequate defense of it currently. So, we're all hoping that we'll get a vaccine or that we'll get some kind of miracle treatment that means that if someone gets it, they won't have some kind of a bad reaction to it. But what I want to do when we come back from the break is I want to go back into the conversation that you and Adele and I had back then about the incredible amount of misinformation that existed then, and the still incredible amount of misinformation that exists today that somehow changes people's behavior away from doing the things they need to do to stay safe and to keep their family safe. So when we come back, we're going to have that conversation, and we'll see where it takes us. This is Ashley Edwards, the president and CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council, and we'll be back after this break.
Subscribe for free to the Coast View podcast on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk, Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else.
This is House Call for Health. There may be no greater medical mystery and no greater tragedy than sudden infant death syndrome. It used to be known as crib death. For no apparent reason, a presumably healthy sleeping baby dies. Medical experts don't have clear-cut answers to what causes sudden infant death, or SIDS, but now they have two risk factors: smoking and drinking during pregnancy beyond the first 3 months. A new study finds that babies whose mothers drank alcohol and smoked tobacco after the first trimester are at far greater risk of SIDS, 12 times greater. Previous studies showed a risk of smoking and drinking individually. This study says doing both drastically increases the danger. The research is sponsored by the National Institutes of Health, which is calling for greater publicity about the danger and improved screening at the very beginning of a pregnancy. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
We know that we're asking Americans to do a lot right now. So we're asking everyone to be selfless for others so that we can protect those who are most susceptible to this virus.
A question I often get asked is, why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical conditions over the age of 60 are at highest risk, but they've got to get it from somebody.
Social distancing is really physical separation of people.
It's what we refer to when we ask people to stay at least 6 feet apart.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants, not going to theaters where there are a lot of people. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others who might actually be infected or infect you.
We all have a role to play in preventing person-to-person spread of this disease, which can be deadly for vulnerable groups. For more information on how you can social distance, please go to coronavirus.gov.
SuperTalk. Nobody keeps Mississippi informed like we do. With 12 stations covering all 82 counties. If it happens in your state, we're on top of it. The news, the weather, the sports, and the talk that's important to you. The issues that matter to you, your family, and your bank account. It's all right here. And when you're away from home, depend on the SuperTalk app and supertalk.fm to stay in the know. We're proud to serve our fellow Mississippians. SuperTalk, Mississippi. Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Ashley Edwards, the president and CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council, with us. And as I promised, I want to have a conversation about the amount of misinformation that's out there. As I mentioned, went back to the conversation, the roundtable that Adele Lyons from the Coast Chamber and you, Ashley, and I had about the situation back in April. And one of the things I pointed out was this, that there's so much misinformation, that the amount of misinformation is truly incredible, that we're seeing the worst of social media play out right in front of our eyes, and people are able to take the facts and some facts and a lot of falsehoods and sort of rewrite the narrative of COVID to fit their agenda. I guess the agenda they think they should have. I think there's even confusion about that. And I pointed out this also sort of unnecessary and counterproductive. Our friend Billy Rubel said this, that there lies the problem. Too many points of view from too many people that don't agree on anything. Essentially, too many folks are confused about what is important. And that was back in April. And what I would suggest to you, Ashley, that unless I have a friend, in fact, who contracted COVID, and I think he gave it to a family member who died. So does it take something like that to get someone's attention? But, I've had a couple of people post some things that reflect that they've started to buy into the gospel of COVID and are beginning to act appropriately, but they'll tag me on something they post on Facebook. But I have others that have dug in their heels more than ever. How did we get here, Ashley, where there's so much confusion about this unfortunate virus?
Well, Ricky, I think one of the really important pieces of this, and there are a lot of issues, but I think one of the really important pieces of this to understand, there was a report released from the State Department some time back. And I know you've actually seen that report, and it talked about the fact that there are adversarial foreign nations that are seeking to leverage the situation with COVID in the United States to create fear, doubt, paranoia among the population base, to create an anti-government attitude among the population base, and that they are doing these things. They're behind a lot of this misinformation that gets put out. And I have actually seen some of the proof myself in looking at some of these websites that have these conspiracy theories, and when you start to link them back, they're linked back to known state actors of sort of information warfare. So a lot of it started there. The problem is that these folks are very smart, and the folks that want to use misinformation to divide people, they play on our fears, our prejudices, our biases, especially the political side of things. We're in a very difficult political time right now with a presidential election occurring. The nation is as politicized as I've seen it in my 40 years of life. And, with that in mind, I think that there's clearly a lot of misinformation going around. But it's not just the misinformation, it's how that causes people to respond. And, I actually did some analysis this morning when I first woke up looking at the New York Times numbers. Mississippi, in the last 7 days, had more new cases per capita than 47 other states in the U.S., and the top 10 states in the U.S. had more cases per capita than every other country in the world that is testing and reporting new cases, which means, we were the third worst in terms of numbers of the last 7 days on Earth. And I think that is something that really ought to sink in with people, because, we cannot allow our state to get in this situation. It could be devastating for our economy. A lot of this happened, Ricky. I think a lot of the misinformation, distrust happened because folks did not like it when government shut things down. We're not going to have to worry about government shutting things down the second time. The consumers are going to shut things down because they're going to stop going out. They're going to stop shopping. They're going to stop eating in restaurants. And the national data we're seeing is already suggesting that change is happening. And that could be longer and worse ultimately than what happened in the early spring. And so, it's a message that we just can't drive home enough, because truly our livelihoods are depending on us getting on top of the situation with this virus and ensuring that we keep our society and our economy running, and that we don't get to the point that our hospitals get overwhelmed. This is a very serious situation, and it's it's surprising to me that people don't take it more seriously. Like you, I have known people that have the virus, people that have been very sick with the virus, and some who have died and lost loved ones to this virus. It is a very serious situation.
Well, what's interesting, if you take the misinformation that are that's coming into the social media realm from the bad actors that you talked about, and you combine that with our leaders' own behavior. Trump not wearing a face mask. He's wearing one today. Okay, so I give him credit for that. Governor Reeves not wearing a face mask, for a long period of time, and then suddenly now he's wearing one. He's saying the right things today. Then you had, Speaker Gunn and Lieutenant Governor Hosemann. They went into the last legislative session being careful, but then they dropped their guard. Both of them end up with COVID, as do countless other legislators. So, our leaders have been. I think they wanted to go from accepting the reality of this to wanting to believe that it's not as contagious and not as deadly, to back to, man, I got to accept the reality of this. I don't think any of those leaders that I just mentioned are going to go back now. I think that they understand that the most important thing we could do for our economy now is use the tools at our disposal. Wearing a face mask, social distancing, washing our hands, not touching our face, and protecting the vulnerable. That's been the constant reframe from the very beginning. And if we don't do those things, that's when the economy is going to get hit, because the numbers are going to go up. Our hospitals are going to get overwhelmed. The deaths are going to start to go up again. Man, it's really kind of simple math. It's exponential math, and there's no denying it, is there, Ashley?
No, there's not. There's a really interesting new tool that's online through Georgia Tech University, and it's a COVID event predictor. And so, for example, you go in there, it uses a very complicated mathematical formula to arrive at these outputs. But you can look in there, for example, in any county in the United States, and you can use a little sliding bar to switch an event in terms of the number of people that are going to attend. And so it tells you, if you're going to have 50 people in a room together, what's the percentage chance in your county that one of those people is going to be positive and have an active case of COVID-19? And I was doing that for the coastal counties yesterday. And, with 100 people in the room, Harrison County was at like 93% chance that one of those people would have an active infection. There are so many things that we can do to slow this down. To stop having these big gatherings that just aren't necessary, to put masks on. And it gets to what you said about this misinformation. There are very specific reasons that people out there want to work against wearing masks. But I think you're absolutely right. Our leaders at the local level, the state level, and even President Trump, really in the last week or two, they've really got behind this idea that masks can and will help us really put a dent in the number of new cases that we're seeing. And, the stakes here aren't just people getting sick. They aren't just, the potential for some people dying. The stakes here really are a prolonged economic depression as a result of the fact that we can't get control of a virus. And, you think about the cases that we're seeing today, 14, 15, 1,600 a day. Those were infections that probably happened somewhere between 18 and 22 days ago based on the testing turnaround. So the people that are active infections today, we won't even start to see those numbers for 2 weeks. And that's a frightening thing to think about. But, look, I could always say I hope that things are going to get better. Hope is not a strategy. It never has been. We have to do more than hope. We have to actively work to be responsible and make sure that we're a part of the solution. And I know, representing the Business Council, every one of our business owners is solidly behind the idea of social distancing and mask wearing, because they understand what the ultimate cost to them would be if, in fact, this gets so widespread that shutdowns have to occur again. That's the last thing anybody wants to see happen.
So Ann and I had dinner last week with Travis Lund and his wife at the Beau Rivage. Travis, the president of the Beau Rivage. And I was really impressed. I had not been there since they had reopened. So, everyone had face masks on. The amount of care and consideration given to us at the restaurant, for example, was really terrific. We felt safe, but that's what it should be like everywhere. I think all the casinos are in that position today, and all the others have to be as well. As it relates to this misinformation, as Mark Henderson, our friend from Lazy Magnolia, says, too many people wait for those canned thoughts to be delivered to them every day. They're not willing to do their own research. We need people to pay attention, and the basics of this are not hard to get your head around. Unfortunately, it's just that this misinformation allows people's attention to be diverted and allows them to be deniers or whatever else happens to come along. But anyway, it's been a pleasure to catch up with you, Ashley. Hopefully, people will continue to pay attention, and we'll start to get see our numbers go back down again. Let's pray that that's the case. It won't be good for us if the numbers continue to head in the direction they're headed in. So people, please pay attention. Anyway, this has been Ashley Edwards, the president and CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council, and we'll see you next week. Actually, we're going to have you and Adele Lyons back for a roundtable discussion about the business environment and some other things. So we'll see you next week.
Look forward to it, Rick. Thank you very much.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.
Hey, want to come work for the #1 radio group on the coast? TeleSouth Media has a great opportunity for an outside sales consultant. Get paid while having fun and work in the exciting, fast-paced world of radio. We have award-winning stations like 97.9 CPR Rocks, 105.9 The Monkey, G96.7, SuperTalk 103.1, and 103.5 The Possum. Take the first step towards a new and rewarding career. Submit your resume to Jesse@telesouth.com. That's JESSE@telesouth.com. TeleSouth Media is an equal employment opportunity employer.
The Dean's List with Janice Dean.
A compassionate young man who became a dinner companion for a stranger makes today's Dean's List. Lisa Mealander and her family had been eating at the Eaton Park in Belle Vernon, Pennsylvania, when she noticed how her server was interacting with a senior patron. The server, Dylan Teetle, had dropped to one knee so he could give his full attention to the gentleman. Lisa wrote on Facebook, "The man apologized for not hearing well, and he talked about how he lost his hearing during the war. He was 91 years old with many stories to tell, and Dylan patiently listened, giving him his full attention. He also helped the man figure out a meal from the menu before putting the order into the kitchen." Lisa tried to flag Dylan down so she could offer to pay for the man's meal. Dylan said someone else had already taken care of the check. Before leaving her table, Lisa snapped pictures of Dylan chatting with the senior and published them to Facebook, where they have been since shared thousands of times. Thank you, Dylan, for your kindness, and Lisa for sharing this story with all of us. Janice Dean, Fox News.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else. Staying informed is a full-time job, even more so during an election year. That's why SuperTalk is here. With Fox News, News Mississippi, and the Super Talkers, you'll go inside the campaigns, and we'll separate what's real from what's not to bring you the latest information that matters. From now until you go into the voting booth on November 3rd, your election headquarters is Super Talk Mississippi. Available on the Super Talk app and at supertalk.fm. From the Gallo Radio Show archives.
In the house, Mike Hurst.
When I started at the end of 2017, sadly, our office had gotten so low during the last administration. I think in FY16, we prosecuted 11 illegal immigration cases, 11, which is embarrassing. First year I was there, we had jumped almost 700% to 77 prosecutions. And Paul, that number I think is going to increase very much more this year. We are continuing to see illegal immigration impact crime around the state. I'll give you a perfect example. About a month ago, we prosecuted an illegal alien who had brought 9 kilos of heroin and 1 kilo of fentanyl through our state. Now, to give your listeners an idea of what 2.2 pounds of fentanyl will do, that will wipe out 1 million people, Paul. That'll wipe out a third of our state.
This has been another Gallo Radio Show audio archive.
You could be spreading the coronavirus without realizing you have it. So do your part and stay home. It's important to limit in-person interaction with anyone outside of your immediate household, but phone and video chat are safe ways to connect. It's also important to limit social gatherings. If you need essential items like food and medicine, try using a delivery service. If you must leave your house for essential items, or if you want to take a walk for exercise, make sure to wear a cloth face covering. Stay at least 6 feet away from other people. Try not to touch frequently touched surfaces like light signals, street signs, or benches. And wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds as often as possible. This advice applies to people of any age, including teens and younger adults. It takes all of us to slow the spread of the coronavirus, so stay home unless absolutely necessary. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
SuperTalk. Nobody keeps Mississippi informed like we do. With 12 stations covering all 82 counties. If it happens in your state, we're on top of it. The news, the weather, the sports, and the talk that's important to you. The issues that matter to you, your family, and your bank account. It's all right here. And when you're away from home, depend on the SuperTalk app and supertalk.fm to stay in the know. We're proud to serve our fellow Mississippians. SuperTalk, Mississippi. He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. As usual, a great conversation with Ashley Edwards, the president and CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council. If you missed it, you can go to the SuperTalk Gulf Coast Facebook page and take a look at it. Great conversation about what the Business Council is, and then a really good conversation about the misinformation and the lack of alignment around what we need to do to battle COVID-19, the coronavirus pandemic situation. Go take a look at that and do your part. Practice social distancing, wear your face mask, help protect yourself and your loved ones, and we can start to get the numbers back down in coastal Mississippi and not have it affect our economy. So with that said, as I promised at the beginning of the show, we have Mike Wilson now, the executive director of the Gulf Coast Community Ministries. They're doing so much incredible work, and what's important is they continue to do their work in the pandemic. So they've got a food pantry, free medical clinic for uninsured, clothing closets, homeless outreach. They have a shower trailer for the homeless. They do camping for home supply distribution for the homeless, and so much more. I can't tell you how much I've looked forward to having this conversation, Mike. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So you were in the military. You did 3 stints here in coastal Mississippi. Tell me just a little bit about your past. I think you retired in 2014. You came back here in 2010. And you've been here since that point. But tell me about your path.
Yeah, so I joined the military out of high school, and my first stint in tech school, like so many in the Air Force, happened right here at Keesler Air Force Base. I was here about a year, and then went to Washington State for a little while, to Korea for a little while, came back here for 4 more years, and went overseas to Portugal and Germany, and then came back here where I filled out the rest of my time. Retired from the Air Force in 2014, immediately started going to seminary down in New Orleans at New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. While I was doing that, I worked for the Mental Health Association here on the Gulf Coast doing homeless outreach and all along Harrison County. And when I graduated seminary, got hired on to be the executive director of Gulf Coast Community Ministries.
Well, as you know, our friend Jamie Bates is a special man. He's a professional photographer, and I would say a consummate volunteer. The work that he does in the community is incredible. We had a Coast View session with him a month or 2 ago, and he sings your praises. And a compliment coming from Jamie about someone who's committed to the community is a real compliment. I mean, he's a special soul, isn't he?
He is. I haven't known Jamie all that long. I've known him about 6 months, but I tell you, I just look up to him. He's such a role model in so many ways. Just as you said, every time you turn around, the guy's giving back somewhere. He's doing disaster relief. Anytime there's tornadoes or hurricanes, he's loading up his equipment, his team, and taking off. Or he's helping out, helping fundraise for the Boy Scouts or for us. Or he's just always got his hands into something good.
What I like about Jamie is he sets an example for others to follow. And, going back to Bush's 1,000 points of light, the reality is it takes 1,000 points of light to make a place like coastal Mississippi tick. We're really fortunate here to have a really good nonprofit community, volunteers that are working in so many different segments. But the truth is we can never have enough volunteers, can we?
No, there's always a need for volunteers. There's always positions to be filled. There's always people out there needing help, and volunteers, even just an hour a week or a couple hours here and there, those all add up. Looking at our organization last year, we had 6,000 volunteer hours dispersed amongst our volunteers, and that's what it took to keep it running and to meet the needs that we need.
Well, that's awesome, and I know that the pandemic. Just kind of painting a high-level picture still, we're going to get into some of the details of your organization here shortly, but the pandemic has actually increased the needs of your organization pretty significantly, haven't they?
Absolutely. When the pandemic first hit, the desire and need for our resources went through the roof. Literally, I couldn't get any work done in the office because I was just on the phone all day answering calls from people who were reaching out wanting help. And just trying to get them plugged into what help we have. And if we couldn't help them, trying to connect them with other resources and agencies in the community.
So if so give me your elevator speech. You and I are climbing in an elevator. I ask you, what is the Gulf Coast Community Ministries? Tell me in one floor what that is.
So we're a faith-based nonprofit. Our desire is just to minister at the crossroads of human need and Christian compassion. We do that through several different ministries. We feed, we tend to people medically, we tend to people spiritually, and we just meet needs any way we can. We kind of have a handful of ministries that are staples, but beyond those, if there's needs that we can meet and they present themselves, we'll go out of the box and meet them every single time.
So every day you hear new things, you hear new needs. And I know I've talked to nonprofit leaders in the nonprofit community all the time about this. While what you do is effectively done, there's never enough. And it can be very frustrating, can it, that so many needs need to be met. Do you find yourself wanting to work harder and your dogged determination even going stronger because of answering that phone or hearing about another need?
Yeah, sure. It's you have to put up boundaries around it, but at the same time, you can't help but when you take those phone calls and you go home at the end of the day and you're in your house with a television, air conditioner, and you talk to somebody who 6 hours earlier has kiddos, and there's a good chance they're going to lose their place, and so you kind of wonder, did I do enough? Are they going to have shelter tomorrow or the next day? And did I do everything we can do as an organization to help them and to keep those needs met?
So let's do this. Let's talk for a few minutes. You mentioned that family that could end up losing their home, and then what happens then? Let's talk for a minute about the needs that your organization meets. So put a face to some of this. Who would need a food pantry? Who would need a medical clinic? Who would need clothes? Tell me about the homeless outreach, but put a face on it for us.
Sure. So we're seeing that face evolve here since the pandemic hit. Prior to the pandemic, you kind of have a set population group that you encounter pretty consistently. Since the pandemic has hit, we've seen a lot of new faces, a lot of new people. You see people coming, they have their heads low, and they're almost shameful to come up and ask for help. And we tell them all the time, keep your head high, come down here. There's a lot of people in your shoes. People that have lost jobs, they're people that have reduced hours and are just having a hard time making ends meet. And so we'll help those people with our food pantry. as far as the clothing closet goes, that's typically limited to our homeless population. And when homeless folks come, if they need new clothing, we have a pretty good closet. We'll give them everything from shoes and socks to pants, shirt, hats, gloves, whatever they need. Our clothing closet's also open to people with special needs. If somebody is going for a job interview and they don't have the clothes necessary for that interview, we'll help them out in that regard. Somebody's going to a funeral or a wedding and doesn't have the attire appropriate for that, we'll help them out. We also offer our free clinic you mentioned, and the free clinic is for those that are uninsured. It's folks that do not have the ability to seek medical care on their own, and we'll see those folks. And our clinic, we're not doing surgery in there, but we do have legitimate doctors who have their own practices. We have a nursing staff, and they can do everything that your primary care physician would typically do. They can write prescriptions. They can do referrals for you. They can check you out and make general diagnoses and do those things for you. One of the other things that we do that we're kind of proud of is our literacy program. And lack of literacy really holds people back in a number of ways. They can't fill out a job application. They can't further their education. So we've got a couple projects tied to literacy. One of them that's kind of fun is we have right outside of our building we have a free library. You've probably seen these things. They look like big birdhouses. Yeah. And you come and take whatever you want out of there. We keep it stocked with faith-based books and just general books. And you can come up. The idea is you come and take a book and replace it with one of your own. But you don't have to. You can just take it and read it.
That's awesome. You know, I am always amazed that an organization like you is able to hit on so many different cylinders simultaneously. But one of the things I want to make sure we do before, and we'll do this in the coming segment, I want you to talk to us about how the general public can help you guys reach more people. And you know, what if someone's listening to this and they want to help, they want to volunteer, they want to contribute, let's go through that. But anyway, we'll do that when we come back from the break. This is Mike Wilson, Executive Director for Gulf Coast Community Ministries, and we'll continue the conversation on the other side.
Listen live or on demand and watch episodes of Coast View on your laptop, desktop, or on your phone or tablet by going to supertalkmsgulfcoast.com.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi, and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. Talking to Paul Thorne, Mississippi true treasure, really incredible recording artist, singer, songwriter, has been doing it a long time, doing it the right way.
It's almost like a Forrest Gump thing because, I was a boxer, / I worked in a furniture factory, / I had a gig 2 nights a week playing my acoustic guitar in a pizza restaurant, / I was in the National Guard, and, all this stuff was going on at the same time. / I had a writing contract with Rick Hall and Fame.
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
We know that we're asking Americans to do a lot right now. So we're asking everyone to be selfless for others so that we can protect those who are most susceptible to this virus.
A question I often get asked is why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical conditions over the age of 60 are at highest risk, but they've got to get it from somebody.
Social distancing is really physical separation of people.
It's what we refer to when we ask people to stay at least 6 feet apart.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants, not going to theaters where there are a lot of people. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others who might actually be infected or infect you.
We all have a role to play in preventing person-to-person spread of this disease, which can be deadly for vulnerable groups. For more information on how you can social distance, please go to coronavirus.gov.
What decisions are being made by state lawmakers, and how will they affect you, your family, and community? If you listen, you'll know. SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk app, and at supertalk.fl.
Hi, I'm Billy Kinder, host of Big Billy Kinder Outdoors here, the show Saturdays at 1, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Turkeys, whitetail, Grenada Lake crappie, or Gulfport redfish. We enjoy it all, especially when you're in camp with us on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Get out of the house and over to Big Play today. 2 massive arcades, bowling, go-karts, 2 mini golf courses, a 2-story state-of-the-art laser tag arena, bumper cars, and right now get a $50 game card for only $25. Visit our station's Facebook and print on demand so you can play at Big Play Entertainment Center now. These deals won't last long, so make sure you get your half-off deal. Big Play Entertainment Center, Highway 90 Biloxi. Bowl, play, eat. Go to our station's Facebook to get your half-off deal now. Hey, want to come work for the #1 radio group on the coast? TeleSouth Media has a great opportunity for an outside sales consultant. Get paid while having fun and work in the exciting, fast-paced world of radio. We have award-winning stations like 97.9 CPR Rocks, 105.9 The Monkey, G96.7, SuperTalk 103.1, and 103.5 The Possum. Take the first step towards a new and rewarding career. Submit your resume to Jesse at telesouth.com. That's JESSE at telesouth.com. TeleSouth Media is an equal employment opportunity employer.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Mike Wilson, the Executive Director of the Gulf Coast Community Ministries. They're working in so many important areas in our communities to fill gaps. And Mike is just one more product of the military here in coastal Mississippi. In this case, Keesler Air Force Base. Came there and did some technical training early in his career, and then ultimately retired from Keesler or Air Force at Keesler in 2014, and came to work for the Gulf Coast Community Ministries. Has a technical background. That probably helps you a lot in what you're doing, just in terms of the methodology of thinking that associates with technical training. So why don't we do this, Mike? Let's shift gears. I want to talk about how people can help you serve this community better. But before we do that, tell me what you're learning about the makeup and the needs of the homeless community these days.
Sure. So my background in the homeless community goes pretty deep here in the Gulf Coast. And what we're finding out is the coronavirus certainly isn't doing them any favors. Very mercifully, it hasn't swept through the homeless community, but a lot of those agencies that typically help homeless have been limited on how they're reaching out or how they're able to reach out, because they're trying to protect themselves and their resources and their facilities as well. So it's kind of limiting some of the help that they've typically been allowed to receive. Our program with the homeless, we try and help them out. They're one of the groups we'll do anything in the world for if we can. And they're still there. They're still coming. We need supplies for them, things that just make their lives a little more comfortable. Right now, some of the stuff that you and I don't think about at night when we go, when it gets dark and it's hot and muggy out, we go inside and they stay out with the mosquitoes. We need bug spray.
Yeah.
We give out a lot of bug spray, and that's just one donation that you can give us that we'll pass on to the people that would really use it, that would make a big difference in their lives. They're out in it all night, every night.
So bug spray is just scratching the surface. So let's do this. If the people who are listening or watching on Facebook, and they are touched by the fact that there's this organization, Gulf Coast Community Ministries, that's out there trying to help in so many different dimensions. what can they do to help, whether it be volunteer or contributions? Talk us through that.
Sure. So all this information can be found on our website, gulfcoastministry.org. And through our website, you can volunteer, you can donate. Some of those specific needs as far as volunteering goes, most of our interaction with the public and with the homeless happens on Tuesday and Thursday mornings from 9 to 11:30. And we need volunteers to run that ministry. We need people to help pack up grocery bags, to sort clothing, to interact with people face to face, to pray with people, to do those things. We also take in donations of food products that we will then redistribute. We also, if you were to give monetarily, you can do that through our website. We have a donate link right at the top, and that's tax deductible. We can take those donations and we'll apply it directly to the mission. We always tell folks we would love nothing more than to get food donations if that's a way you feel led to give. We'll take that food and redistribute it. If you give to us monetarily through our website, it costs us, through our relationships with our suppliers, about 40 cents to put together a balanced meal that we can then redistribute to our folks. So we do get really good kind of bang for your buck, so to speak, when we spend that money on supplying food for our homeless and those in need in the community.
Wow, that's incredible. I bet the food needs can be really significant.
Sure. I was one of the things I tell folks is every day we're open, we give out about 100 cans of vegetables, and that's just one portion of a balanced meal. We also give out, through some of our relationships, we actually get meat, we get milk, we get all those cold products. We've got about 100 square foot of freezer space that's usually we try to keep well stocked with frozen chicken, frozen just meat products. We talked about Jamie Bates earlier. He's really good about keeping us stocked with that kind of stuff. He'll show up sometimes with packaged pork from a restaurant, pulled pork that we'll then redistribute. It's really good stuff. These people make out pretty good sometimes.
I know that his barbecue is some of the best on the coast. Of course, I'm partial to it, but it's still, I mean, it's just good. Daddy's barbecue is good stuff.
It's terrific, and that brings up a really good point. We've got on October 22nd, we have our largest annual fundraiser that we do, and it's sponsored by Daddy's Barbecue. And you can read more about that at daddysbbq.com. But Daddy's Barbecue, 100% of the proceeds go to Gulf Coast Community Ministries. And what you can do, we do a pork butt sale, and Daddy's cooks it all. You can buy tickets on our website. That'll be available soon. And you get a whole pulled pork shoulder to bring home, and we'll get all the proceeds. But that'll be on our website coming up soon. That'll be October 22nd is that fundraiser. We've also got Camping for Hope coming up on December 5th. We'll be taking donations between now and then for all of our homeless outreach. Camping for Hope's the largest homeless outreach event on the coast that happens every year. So anything for camping, we'll take donations and distribute it.
Well, this is Mike Wilson, the Executive Director for Gulf Coast Community Ministries. You can search it on the web. There's lots of information there to learn more about them. But reach out to them, find a way to volunteer, contribute to them either money or food or clothing. They would really appreciate it because the needs are significant, unfortunately, in coastal Mississippi. And thank God we have an organization like Gulf Coast Community Ministries working so hard to fill those gaps. So have a great day, Mike, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Okay, very good.